Point with Juandolyn Stokes, right here, News and Talk, WAOK. It's Law and Link with attorney C.K. Hoffler. Pleasant good morning to you, C.K. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Good morning, Juandolyn. How are you today? It's so great to see you face to face,
Yes,
virtually, but it's great to see you.
it's great to see you as well. As we kick off, we've got some guest panelists that you're going to introduce shortly. But leadership is so important and
It
environmental
is.
justice. But talk to us about just leadership and why it's important in every area today.
And every area, Juandolyn, you're so right. Today, in today's environment, we're always focused on leaders. We're focused on leaders in our country. We're focused on local leadership locally. Some people believe all politics are local and globally. So leadership is important. How do we train those leaders? How are they trained? And where do they come from? What are the instrumentalities? What are the spaces where they're trained? And so today we're going to talk about one of the most phenomenal organizations responsible for training generations of leaders in this country. And it's called the National Urban Fellows. It's a fellowship. We've got the
Wow.
president and CEO, Lisa Rollins, who's going to talk about it. We've got Miguel Centero, who is one of the board members. And then we have one of the fellows who's going to talk. Her name is Candace Wentner, who's going to talk about a capstone project that she won. She's one of the leading of this class. And it involved some of her leadership, and some of the research that she did involved Atlanta. So when we talk
Wow.
about environmental justice and the legal component, we have one of the foremost lawyers in the world for environmental justice, and that's Leslie Fields. She's been on our show before. She's so bad that we just had to have her come back again. And so we're bringing it all together because environmental justice matters. We want people to understand, what does that mean? We should have the right to live pollution free in our communities when there are big developments. And so that's what this team we have assembled, starting with the president and CEO of National Urban Fellows, which we call NUF, and that's none other than Dr. Lisa Rollins.
Welcome, Dr. Rawlings. How are you?
I am wonderful. Good morning, and thank you so much for having us on the show today.
Yes, we're glad to have you. Well, what is the National Urban Fellows?
Yes, the National Urban Fellows is a leadership accelerator and pipeline and network of leaders to really advance a society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. We really believe in the promise of America, and that talent is abundant, and we also want to make sure that opportunity is abundant. We believe that people closest to the challenges are best equipped to solve them, and that thriving is not just an individual achievement, it's really a collective effort. And so we really center community and cohort.
It's amazing. I can speak firsthand. I wish I had been an
Part of
urban fellow. I really do. I've had the pleasure of attending some of their events, meeting some of their fellows. Absolutely amazing. You know, Dr. Rollins, I call her Lisa, but Dr. Rollins, I just wanted to introduce you to our audience because the amazing work that we do, that you all do, and the amazing leadership and vision. And I know we got one of your board members, actually the chair of the board, who's also going to come on and talk a little bit about that vision. But why do you think here in Atlanta, Georgia, talk to us about the connection with NUF and Atlanta, Georgia? And why is it important to our listeners to understand NUF's purpose and mission in today's environment?
Yes. So, our approach to leadership has always been about marrying competence and character.
okay.
Really thinking about not just preparing people with the knowledge and the tools that they need, but also to be really self-aware, to be really rooted in community and in solidarity and in purpose and in those values that are really kind of central to the founding of this country. And so we've been doing this for over 56 years. And so we have generations, as Attorney Hoffler has mentioned, that of leaders who have carried on this tradition. And Atlanta has been one of the cities that we have an alumni base, folks who were recruited from
Wow.
all over the country to Atlanta, or folks who recruited from Atlanta and had experiences around the country and have come back to invest that knowledge and those skills and that competence and that expertise in local government and county government and statewide government and nonprofits in all sorts of fields, from election to public health, and the gamut of social impact issues that really make a community in Atlanta that is more healthy and more thriving and abundant.
So we've got the chair of the board, Miguel Centino. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Want to talk about, we talked about these different areas, healthcare, social justice. Today, we're going to focus specifically on environmental justice. And so, what can you say to our listeners about why NUF has this, or how is NUF a leader in the pack of those training leadership in this country? What is so
Yeah,
unique about NUF?
yeah, absolutely. Thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to be on today. We always welcome the opportunity to share the great work that we've been doing.
That's great.
In a nutshell, CK, we are here to help America realize the vision that she's had for herself for 249 years, right? She has declared that all men and women are created equal
How
and that
about
they
that?
are,
How about
right,
that? How about that?
Right.
right,
Oh, I'm
and that
sorry. I
they,
didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead,
no,
Miguel.
no, no, that's fine. And further, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, among those, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
Right. So, in order for that to be true, we have to ensure that everyone who's willing to put in the work can realize their fullest potential. Right. Because when that happens, we all win. Right. When that happens, we all win.
Absolutely.
Communities thrive. It leads to broader economic prosperity and opportunity for all. And so that's where NUF comes in. Right. And Dr. Rollins alluded to this. We are proud for over 56 years to have produced leaders who lead with courage, who lead with competence, and who lead with integrity. And so these are leaders whose goal is to ensure that everyone can succeed, everyone can thrive. Because as I mentioned, when that happens, we all win.
Well, I know that we're going to have to go to break, but I just want to clarify. It's Miguel Centeno.
Miguel Centeno.
Centeno. Centeno. I had it
You got it.
all wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Please
Centeno.
forgive me.
Okay.
Centeno.
All right.
So we're going to go to break, and then we're going to bring on one of the fellows. One of the fellows. The proof is in the pudding. When you hear this young lady, and then from the incomparable, unparalleled Leslie Fields, the leading environmental justice lawyer in the world. I just call her in the world. I've known her since law school, so I'm just claiming it. She's been on our show before. When we come back from break, the lineup and hearing this, and we want our listeners to really understand what it means in our communities.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do. And Dr. Rawlings are the fellows, they participate in a type of training and learning for a certain length of time.
Yes, thank you so much for asking. So what's really unique about the National Urban Fellows experience is that it's a 14-month, really holistic
Okay.
and intensive experience. So in that 14 months, fellows are earning a master's degree in policy management at Georgetown's McCourt School of Public Policy,
Okay.
funded, as well as having hands-on experience at these incredible organizations that we partner with all around the country. So they're not just learning the theory of what the book says,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
We're actually applying it and understanding what's happening in the real world when you try to apply these theories to practice. And
That's
then they're
good.
doing this under the mentorship of a senior executive who can really be a part of their own leadership journey. And so we really think about all of the elements that are helpful in preparing this next generation. And we believe we have the secret sauce by making sure that there's experience, there's that mentorship. And then they're also doing this in community with a group of other fellows who really care and champion them, to help mirror back, the ideals and the commitments that they make so that they can learn to be accountable to themselves and accountable to their colleagues.
That's great. I love that approach. I mean, that's how you're able to build, that courage and that integrity and competency. Yeah, I mean, the education, the practice, the theory, the mentorship, and as well as community. Let's go to break, and we'll come back and hear from one of the fellows when we return. It's Law and Legal on Point with Juandolyn Stokes, with our special guest, along with attorney C.K. Hoffler as our host as well. We'll go to break. We'll be back with more news and talk. WAOK. All right, we're going to be at break for about a minute. Okay.
Okay. All right. And I just wanted to underscore because I think it got a little bit lost that it's fully funded
Mhm.
so that people understand this is a fully funded program that because that's what makes it really truly amazing. You know,
Mhm.
really, really amazing. Okay. Y'all did great. Miguel, I'm so sorry I mispronounced your name. I was looking at it and I said, you know what? I think I got it all wrong. And you know how you have to just, that's a good thing with radio. You go back, you correct yourself, you build it into
But
the
we're
narrative.
doing good because we are still live on Facebook.
Oh, and so we're
Yeah, so
doing
we're
good.
doing
We're doing good. And I
we're
love
doing
that
good.
reminder.
Yes, yes. So it's fully funded, and that's important.
Yes.
How are students made aware of this
Yeah.
program?
So we advertise on social media. We advertise on kind of fellowship websites. We also cross advertise with the McCourt School at Georgetown University. And then, the really special way we do it is also kind of the connections with our alumni network. And so we have over 2,000 alumni around the country who've experienced this investment in their own growth and leadership. And so they know the right kind of applicants that we're looking for, the folks who bring the kind of character and mission and commitment to this work, and who can withstand the rigors that it really requires. And so our alumni have been a driving force in our recruitment and also help us with our selection.
So are they mostly full time within these 14 months?
Completely full time. You have
Okay,
to
okay.
actually, they have to relocate from wherever you're recruited from to move to DC in the summers. And then you may be placed anywhere in the nation with any one of our partners. So it's a
Wow.
very, robust commitment that all of our fellows make to their growth and to the work that they will be leading in.
Yeah, because you want to make sure it's successful and that when they come out of it, they're able to make impact for the world. And especially when it comes to like environmental justice, like one of the areas, because what are you seeing that's needed in terms of leadership when it comes to environmental justice?
Yeah, I think, environmental justice is parallel to lots of the other issues that the fellows are interested in, whether it's health equity, whether it's economic mobility, folks who kind of share this commitment to the vision, but also they have the courage, as Miguel mentioned earlier, to really kind of have the integrity to hold on to their beliefs and these commitments, even in challenging times where there may be differing opinions. And then that they, really can absorb the content, and that they're strong navigators and communicators in the space, and that they really kind of carry through these core values.
Wow, that's good. That's good. That's very important. And because what do you see that is going to be very critical over the next few years that's needed in the character and competency of young leadership?
Miguel, you want to hop
Miguel?
in there?
Miguel, you want to?
Sure. I think it's very important for leaders to have the right mindset, right? They've got to have all of those other things that I talked about, but they've also
Okay.
got to have the right mindset that it's not us versus them, it's we, right? Because leaders with community mindsets are naturally invested in bringing people together, right? And not driving them apart. And they're really solution oriented. They know the value of civil dialogue and mutual respect and finding common ground, right? The kinds of things that we believe Americans are looking for across the board.
Yeah, yeah. Americans are looking for great leadership. And like you said, being able to confront things even when you have a difference of opinion. How do you
Right.
handle that, you know?
Right.
But learning and being mentored and being with community is important. Welcome back to On Point with Juandolyn Stokes, Law and Legal with attorney C.K. Hoffler. If you're listening live on the air, download the Odyssey app, iHeartMedia, look for WAOK, On Point with Juandolyn Stokes. Attorney C.K. Hoffler was telling us about, one of the fellows that's about to
Yes.
come before us.
Yes, she is. That's Candace Winter. I think I pronounced her name correctly. And she is extraordinary. She was the winner of the capstone project for National Urban Fellows. Here she is. And, it's when I think of, Wandlin, we've been at it for a while, but
Yeah.
it's now time for us to pave the way and let this new generation do what they're doing best. And she's an example of that. And I'm so proud of her. And so, Candace, tell us about your project. First of all, tell us what the Capstone Project is and tell us how you got involved in National Urban Fellows.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, CK. Hi, Wandolyn. It's great to be on the
Hi.
line with everyone and with your listeners today. So, a little bit about how I got to NUF first, because I love sharing my NUF story. So, I applied to the National Urban Fellowship because I was looking for two things, really. So, the first was I was looking to use education as a tool to change the world. Shout out Nelson Mandela for the quote. Um, and I wanted to better understand how our policy systems and policy processes worked. I was doing social justice work at foundations, and time again, it felt like this policy piece was an obstacle to advancing the issues that the foundation and I were supporting. So I wanted to learn how to intervene in those systems. And then the second thing I wanted to do was transform my leadership and management skills. And I was lucky enough to know some of the incredible NUF alumni. There's an amazing network out there. And I knew two folks who I was sharing these goals with, what I was trying to get out of my professional journey, my professional career. And they told me that NUF was the way to do those things. And let me tell you, they were right, because I am coming out of NUF such a stronger, wiser, more confident, and courageous leader. And
Wonderful.
thank you. And as part of my NUF fellowship journey, we had to write what was called a capstone. So this is a policy capstone, and it's essentially a big research paper that you turn in at the end of your studies, analyzing a policy or a policy situation and making some recommendations around it. And I chose to focus on an issue that you all have laid up for me, which is an environmental justice issue, but it's also so much more. And I think it's really important to your listeners in Atlanta, but it's also a national issue and even a global one. And that's the issue of community displacement in the face of these infrastructure development projects that are happening in so many of our cities. And in the research world, they call this phenomenon green gentrification. But I'm going to break that down a little bit.
Okay.
So basically what green gentrification is it's when these environmental improvements are happening in cities. So this could be parks, it could be greenways, it could be redeveloping a waterfront, things like that. And what happens is those developments happen and they attract wealthier residents to these historically underinvested in neighborhoods. And then they push out the lower income communities that have lived there for generations, many of which have fought for these very developments to happen. And, being in cities, I've lived in cities like New York, I've lived in Los Angeles. That's where I was placed for my NUF residency. And then I have strong community in Atlanta. And I've seen this happen to these communities one too many times. And it's a heartbreaking reality every time. And, these are the communities that are fighting for better neighborhoods for their children to play in, for them to have shade and green spaces, for them to ride their bikes, to stay healthy. And once that investment finally comes, these communities don't get to enjoy it. And more so, they have to pick up and move their whole life, sometimes into worse neighborhoods than where they started. And I really see this as a social failure, but I don't think it has to be that way. And I wanted to figure out how to have better neighborhoods, how to have greener neighborhoods, but keep the same neighbors. So that's what led me to do this research, this capstone, where I provided policy recommendations to Los Angeles County, which is in the midst of embarking on a big greening project to redevelop the Los Angeles River. So folks might know it from the movie Grease. I think it's been in the movie Terminator. It's a big concrete river that spans through basically every neighborhood in LA. And I knew that I couldn't advise LA without considering what happened in Atlanta with the Beltline. And for those that may not know, the Beltline is a loop of trails, parks, and transit that's built along an old railroad track that circles the city. And ultimately, I studied Atlanta because I saw it as a case of what not to do. I was seeing that communities weren't being consulted in the development process. communities weren't being considered in the work that went into that development, and communities were being displaced as a direct result of that displacement.
Wow. Okay. Juandolyn, Lisa, Miguel, we have to be on a first name basis. Look at this magnificent young woman. This is what it's about when we talk about leadership. And so I want to bring on, I know we got to go to break pretty soon, but Juan, I got to bring on our
Go
final
right ahead.
guest, Leslie, bad to the bone on every level in the world, Fields. Leslie Fields, attorney Leslie Fields, is she is the chief federal officer of We Act. She also is the former national director, was in charge of policy, legal issues for the Sierra Club for over a decade, ladies and gentlemen. When I say bad to the bone, you see, there's some people that fight on every level, know how to fight, so that people like Candace, they pave the way for them to do what they do. And that would be Leslie Fields. She's not just a stellar in the environmental justice space and respected there. She's also well respected in voting rights, civil rights. Just, I don't even know what to say. And I've known her since law school. So, Leslie Fields, how it's just such an honor to have you back on our show. But can you kind of bring in the legal component? Candace talked about
Yes.
the policy. Bring it on home to us with the legal component of this whole discussion.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you. I am so honored and thrilled to be back on the show, Miss Wandolin, and CK, aka Tricia, as I knew her in law school. I it's just a blessing to have you in my life. I am very happy to be part of this program and have met. It's been so great to have met Dr. Rawlings in the past, and I'm very happy to also get to know Mr. Centeno and Candace. I'm dying to read your capstone project. This is fantastic.
Anytime.
So
Yes.
we are very proud of you. And I just want to say that there are so many aspects to this issue. And Candace is absolutely right. And this is happening all over the country. And particularly also around when communities who have fought, for example, very, very heavy industry, whether it's closing a landfill, closing a coal plant, um, having been subjected to that pollution, working on the remediation, and then only to have their community also become gentrified. And so, it is so much work. It takes decades, and it's all about, land use policy. We are dealing with the legacy of segregation and redlining, as you all know. And
Yes.
so, and then also zoning, right? And the zoning is very, very tough to change the zoning in these local communities. You might have also problems with the legislatures who have, enacted preemption laws, so local communities can't change their local laws. This is happening in Texas, for example. So it really, the zoning fights are very localized, very specific, and by the time a bunch of neighborhoods have fought whatever it is, they're exhausted. They basically spent,
Yes.
their all their free time. They didn't get paid to do this, and that is really the challenge. Is that when we want to include communities, and the environmental justice movement is replete with this, but we have 17 principles. The communities speak for themselves, but they're very, very tired. They've spent, all that time trying to read records of decisions. They've tried to read cases. They've tried to find pro bono support. It's not just the lawyers, it's also the experts. It's a lot of it's a battle of the experts.
Mhm.
Hydrologists, toxicologists, epidemiologists, finding these experts to support them. Many people go to local universities having to deal with this, and they've never been paid a dime, right? And so they've had two jobs trying to raise their kids, and so a lot of people are just exhausted, and it's really easy to totally disregard the community because the community can't be in a meeting in the middle of the day across town when they are on their job. This is particularly acute after a natural disaster. And I know, Ms. Wandolin, you've done some great shows on climate justice, and the
Yes.
climate crisis with Gary Harris,
Yes.
many others. And so we saw this in New Orleans. Um, they put the Louisiana Recovery Authority. I was just down there for Katrina 20 in St. James Parish and then over in Gulfport and attending meetings 20 years ago in Baton Rouge. Well, they were deciding on what they were going to do with New Orleans. And a whole range of things happened. And people were not allowed to come back. It also depends on, if you've got the heirs property issue, which is very acute, particularly in the South, as you all know. You don't have clear title. You can't find the title. You have to go through a title search. It's very expensive when you've been living in your grandmama's house, with your cousin Dexter and Pookie and those guys, right?
Right, right.
You've not been able to get insurance and you've also been redlined. It's exhausting. So after there's a disaster and because of the climate crisis, as we all know, they're more frequent and they're more severe. You can't find any of your papers, even if you had the papers, right? You have to recreate everything, get some, and then you got to figure out where to put your kids in school. You got to find your job. You got to be able to get your bank statements, all those things. The meanwhile, the vultures are circling, all right, to take advantage because you can't attend all these meetings. And so a lot of it is just very much, it's highly technical and it's also just wearing because there's so much to do, whether it's a facility coming in or you've cleaned up an area. People need support. And so there are a lot of great organizations in the Atlanta area, as you all know. And so they're designed to work on these things. The belt line, sometimes you just can't, it's very hard, as I'm sure Candace saw, to fight the market forces. All right. And once developers saw that this area was being now, they got more lighting, they got more police protection, it became very attractive. And, and lots of other reasons. But as you know, it's really difficult. Everyone has a right to a clean environment. And our communities have really been subjected to the burdens and not the benefits. And we really have to be about making sure, and I know, and I'm so excited that Candace has done this work to make sure that our communities also get the benefits of a
Yep.
sustainable society. You've got a great Department of Sustainability, with Chandra Farley leading it in Atlanta. And you've got, Partnership for Southern Equity with Nathaniel Smith and the HBCU Green Fund. They're doing such great work in the region and in the country. Felicia Davis is with the started the HBCU Green Fund, and I think that leadership is so important because we have to nurture and we have to also give the empower the next generation. They're the ones who are going to take us to the promised land. We got to, right? And
Right.
I'm looking forward to hearing more about your project because it sounds like it could be applicable to many, many other places. There've been successful planning, there's been successful, less, more inclusive, less gentrification in some programs in some communities. But at the same time, it takes a lot to plan all of this, and it has to be proactive. You have to have tenant protections, possibly create affordable housing, and also community land trusts are very, very, I'm sure you bring in that, and that takes extra. And to bring in, for example, universities, HBCUs, you have a plethora of them in the area. There's programs at Spelman, I know, and the first EJ Resource Center was at Clark Atlanta, it was under Dr. Bullard. So, you have to take advantage of these resources. There are a number of other organizations out there, housing organizations. Um, and so it's just, and community development organizations who are looking at this to make sure that the investment comes to our communities for our communities. And, you have the,
Leslie, when you talk about investments, and we're going to go to break on air right now, we'll be back with more, but we're still live on Facebook. When you talk about investments back into our communities, what are you really referring to? Like, what type of investments?
well,
Or how would
investment,
those investments look?
right. Investments in terms of, into tax incentives for the communities, grants for the communities, in terms of making sure that there is the building reinvestment, making sure that the weatherization, making sure that there's the existing housing stock is assessed, the existing housing stock is improved upon, and also investing in the even some of these communities don't even have grocery stores. I call it food
Mhm.
apartheid. All right, it's not a desert.
Wow.
Desert implies a natural occurring condition. This is all born of, you know, born of segregation and zoning, and this, and the land zoning that did not include our communities in a proper way. Why do they always get the burdens? And the development not being, let's put another landfill in your neighborhood, let's put in a grocery store, let's put in some co-op opportunities. So there's ownership opportunities, whether it's owning your energy, so for example, solar systems, all of these things can have been accomplished in the past. There's lots of examples, and there was opportunities to do this. And so we have to fight for these things in the federal government and in the state legislature to make sure that these tax credits and these investments, so that you can own your energy supply, so you can have options. If you want to have, for example, charging stations, if you want to have options in terms of transit, there's a whole transit justice movement.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
and so making sure that these options, those are the kinds of investments, but so that you have, farmers markets, all those things, right? The young people and people who are coming to the community would want to see, and so they can thrive. And making sure that the schools are, when you build a new school, you don't put it on a landfill. You don't put it next to a refinery. I've seen schools put next to synthetic rubber plants. I mean, they'll put a school
Wow.
anywhere because the land is cheap, right? And they haven't cleaned it up. And so you have to qualify everything, and then also who can benefit from the construction, who can benefit from the remediation, and they're properly trained. There's lots of groups that work on this, but those are the kinds of investments from upstream and downstream that we
Mhm.
have to see and demand. And again, we have to understand that the communities who've borne the brunt of this have been fighting, 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 right? And so they need to be able to have some time off and go to church and enjoy a Sunday dinner, right, with their
Yes.
kids, and not have to worry about what's the next meeting that I have to go to testify across town
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
take my time. And so just like in every movement, it takes a long time. And there's so many communities that are still at this. In the other parts of your state, you've got, people who don't have sewer systems. They don't have,
Right.
they didn't get to be part of the municipality's water system. All of these things, and there's so many people that have worked hard on this, but we have to be these all these communities, they are taxpayers. They're taxpayers, they're citizens, all right, they've contributed to this country, and they deserve to be part of this boon and be able to not just walk around the beltway, but actually maybe have an opportunity to have some ownership to some of the companies or some of the new pop-ups that come in. How do they become part of that, in addition to making sure that there's tax relief, particularly for our
Yeah.
elders, right? And so
Mhm.
they're not driven out because of the taxes. Make it easier to find their titles, make it easier to get insurance so that there is a storm, they're not underwater year after year after year. And so it's a lot there, but I'm glad that Candace and we have all these new young people. The EJ movement benefited from enough already. We had a wonderful graduate we work with, Carrie Fulton. I've known her since she went to Howard, and all you Bison, and so she's in Baltimore doing great work around the fossil fuel industry. She was enough graduate, and so this is what I love about environmental justice is it encompasses all these things. You can even be in the arts, you can be an educator, right? But it's about where we work, live, play, worship, and it's super important, and it's global, and that's a whole other show, right? And so And the faith community has been deeply involved. There's a Green to Church conference coming up in Atlanta, actually, October 12th to 14th. And there's going to be a lot of people talking about these sustainability issues. There's going to be, and a lot of churches and faith houses have done their own. You know, you've heard about like Abyssinian Baptist Church in Harlem. They've done their own housing, right? A lot of churches have put this together, and that is sustainability too. And you've got our civic groups, sororities, fraternities, Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated. They have Delta Towers here in DC. You know, they put together good housing. And so to make sure that community is strong, we got to build these strong communities so we can thrive. And then we also are able to benefit from, you know, a cleaner environment and healthier and take advantage of these new technologies, you know, solar and wind. We have options to our energy system. So it's exciting. It's exciting time. I'm so happy that Candace got into this, and Los Angeles is, you know, there's lots of groups there working on these issues, and it's so much work to do though, but it's
Yeah.
exciting, and
Absolutely.
these opportunities are opening up.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to do, but like you said, with all of these organizations and groups pulling resources and time and energy into it, and fellows like Candace and others, this is very
Mhm.
crucial to the work at hand. Welcome back for those of you who are listening on WAOK. We are back live. We're also live on Facebook, and make sure you tune in. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, back to
Yes.
you.
Well, I'd like to throw just a thought out there. There's
Okay.
another part of this discussion that we haven't really gotten into, and that's mass tort litigation. Leslie, you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So we people heard about, you know, the city of Flint, the water problem in the city of Flint. That is, when we bring it back home, that's an environmental disaster. And
Yes.
it became an environmental justice issue. So
Mhm.
there was litigation. Other issues, well, we know about even things like the Johnson and Johnson talcum powder case. I
Mm.
mean, that's mass tort. The opioid crisis, that's mass tort. The litigation that results from these environmental crises. And by the way, and the reason why I'm raising in this concept in this discussion is because the Nuff Fellows, we have one that's focused on environmental justice, but all of these other things, healthcare, right? Political, criminal, all of these areas that the Nuff
Yes.
Fellows focus on can also result in ultimately policy issues or mass tort litigation. Why? Because of the impact on our communities. So I just want you all to think about that. And I know Leslie, you know the answers right away, but I'd like to hear from Candace on connecting that dot with what you've done, your capstone project. Talk to us about litigation, if you can, mass tort, and how does that connect for you?
Absolutely, CK. I'm so glad you brought this up. And Leslie, you were speaking truth to power earlier with some of the
Yes.
solutions.
I
Let me
told
just
you.
tell you, community land trust, land banking, tenant protections, those are all policy recommendations that I made in my capstone. So I'm definitely going to be sharing that with you. I think you'll enjoy reading it. But on the note of tenant protections, this goes back to what you were asking, CK. There was a big legal component when I was talking about this specific recommendation, because of course there's enabling stronger tenant protections on a local level to prevent this issue from happening in the future, to keep people in their homes, in their apartments. But there's also a legal side to that piece. And I would call it tenant support. As much as you're building in these tenant protection policies, you also need to be providing legal support for people who are in real battles in the moment. So, one of the things that I researched and explored is what it would look like to actually have some organizations providing that legal support. And of course, you're going to need that local investment. So for me, I was making recommendations to LA County. So as part of my recommendation for tenant protections, it wasn't just about enacting better policies in that area. It was actually providing legal support for people who were currently in tenant battles. And if you look at the environment right now, a lot of people are not getting that legal support. Their cases are completely backed up. They're not being seen or heard in court. And by the time they are, they're already long gone out of their place. So there's also investment that needs to happen in providing that legal support for tenants. So that's the way that it showed up in my capstone. But I'm sure there are so many other capacities and expansions of the legal side. But that's the way that I looked at it.
Right.
That's
And
Well,
there's,
good. That's
there's a
good.
movement of community
Let's go to
land
break.
banks.
Hold on one second. Let's
Sorry.
go to break via radio, but we're still live here on Facebook. We'll be back,
Hey,
those of
hey,
you who are
hey, this is
listening
Miss Civil
on
Hurd,
1380
aka the
WAOK.
Frugal
But go ahead and
Credinista,
continue.
financial
CK,
educator,
you were about to
certified
say
credit
something?
counselor, consumer advocate, and you are
absolutely.
listening to On Point
Uh,
with Juandolyn Stokes
well,
on News and Talk 1380 WAOK, the voice of the community.
News and Talk 1380 WAOK.
okay.
Okay.
So I wanted to, I've met some of the fellows, and I met a couple of them were lawyers. So this is to Lisa and Miguel. When we're looking at the what NUF does in grooming, and again, I think what people need to retain: fully funded, master's degree
Don't forget
from Georgetown University, my
Yes.
alma mater, fully funded, master's degree Georgetown. I just had to break it down that way. But I did note that you had a couple of lawyers who were also involved and were very, very eager and very interested in incorporating what they learned from NUF in their legal careers. Lisa, can you speak to that? Because I know it's a very competitive process to become a fellow, but can you speak to that and the cross section between policy and law?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that question. And Leslie and Candace, thank you so much for just bringing these issues to life
Yes.
in such a powerful way. You know, all of the characteristics you displayed is exactly why we do the work, right? And what we look for in fellows, we look for people who have a strong commitment to really balancing out these burdens and benefits that Leslie spoke to making sure that everyone is on equal footing, that there's very knowledgeable, and that they have demonstrated their own leadership, growth in their own careers, whether it's in community service or in their professional career trajectory. And we look for folks who are really ready to make those investments in their own growth. They may have, like Candace, have gotten to a place where she's really proficient in the work that she's doing, but she wants more. She sees that there's a disconnect between the work that she's doing and the impact that she wants to make. And so we're really looking for people who are hungry to do that kind of work. And they come from all backgrounds. And so some come from a legal background. Some, have, kind of an academic background. Some people are grassroots organizers. Some people are teachers coming out of the classrooms. They're seeing the impacts of policies play out in their workspace from many different vantage points. And part of what mobilizes them is, how can I take my on the ground experience to understand the larger machinations that are really leading to these outcomes, and kind of bring all of my expertise and this newfound knowledge to bear to address these issues in a more powerful way.
Wonderful. And Miguel, what would you have to add to that, if anything? That was just wonderful.
Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity here to sort of encapsulate the conversation that we've been having by sharing a few of NUF's beliefs. We certainly believe that everyone should have the opportunity to thrive. We believe that talent is distributed equally across subject areas, across expertise,
Yeah.
and that opportunity should be as well. We certainly believe that people who are closest to the challenges are best equipped to solve them.
Yes.
And finally, we believe that thriving is not an individual achievement, but rather a collective process. And it's been through that collective process, through these 56 years, that we've developed leaders who are committed to building bridges and not walls, right? Leaders who are part of a network of more than 2,000 leaders, mentors, and partners across the country. And so, we certainly invite folks for whom this mission resonates, right? People who want to learn more about becoming a fellow, who want to learn more about becoming a mentor, who want to partner with us, folks who may want to support our work financially. We certainly welcome them to visit us at www.nuf.org. nuff.org, where we bring it all together.
That's
You
great.
know,
That's great. Enough.
why
I
do
love it.
just bring it all together? See, that's how you have to remember stuff. We had a caller. I don't know if she's still on the
Yeah,
line.
I've got Todd on the line,
You've
and
got Todd, and I think
yeah.
Latanga Allen Felder was on the line as well. I
Okay,
think.
let's go to Todd, and then want to go back to go to Felder.
Yes, that'd
Okay.
be wonderful.
All right. Awesome. Todd, your question. Welcome. Todd, are you here?
You can't hear me?
Yes, I
Yes, we
can
can
hear you
hear you
now,
now.
sweetie. Thank you for
Okay.
holding. Go right ahead.
I do have a question for Candace and Leslie. Is that your name, Leslie?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Incomparable Leslie. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can't help it. Okay.
If you do not believe this is true, then you can't answer. There's no need for the question. But if you accept that there is such a thing as correct, healthy gentrification, do you consider the contribution of raised property taxes that correct, healthy gentrification brings, and balance it with the people that can no longer can't compete to be there because they can't keep up with the increase in property taxes through healthy, correct gentrification?
All right, Candace and Leslie. I have my views. I love you, Todd. I have my views, but Candace and Leslie.
I don't know what I don't know what correct and healthy gentrification is. And
I can
so
express it in two sentences. It's when upper middle class to wealthy people move into a neighborhood and become the larger population, and as a result of that, the property taxes of the neighborhood goes up.
yeah, I don't think it's correct, and I don't think it's necessarily healthy. I think that there has to be a balance, and as we talked about, there's ways, there's direct assistance to residents, and there's also tax breaks for elders, and also, a lot of the appraisers, you have to contest your appraisement, and to have better systems to do that, so it's not as difficult for the long-term residents, and that they're able to get, through maybe a community land bank, loans or low interest loans to upgrade their property as well. And so, there's a lot of happening with the market forces, and a lot of the new residents are getting their inheritances. There's a wealth transfer going on, right? And so that doesn't necessarily, so that we want to have people, and then we also want to have other folks, all kinds of folks move in and be dynamic and come in with their businesses and ideas. So I think that it doesn't necessarily, there are examples where it doesn't necessarily have to increase a lot of, taxes steeply on existing residents, but at the same time, they need the opportunity that's equitable and fair. If they have to contest what's going on, they're able to do it. They know what's going on, because a lot of times it's, you don't know because they're not publicized. They don't know who's coming in, and also there are people who want to sell their property, and they have a right to sell their property. Once, let's say, the original owners die, their grandparents die, and they may get a good price for it. And, are there programs to talk to some of those family members to not sell grandma's house, right? And so, because there may be some problems with it, or there a way to get back tax relief? It's very complicated, the reasons why this is happening, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily healthy. I think a healthy would be a balance of all the things solutions we've talked about. And I know I'll let Candace speak to this, because she's got some really good ideas. I think we need a balance to be healthy.
Thanks, Leslie. I'm with you on a lot of this. And thank you so much for the question, Todd. Well, I wouldn't say that I think that there is a healthy gentrification. I would say that I think there can be healthy development. So I want to talk about like the to what end of the gentrification question. I can understand that we want our neighborhoods to improve. We want our properties to be valuable. We want to have nice things in those neighborhoods. So I'm not arguing against development. I very much so think that there can be healthy development, and I want development for our neighborhoods. I think where it becomes healthy is when community is considered and you build in protections for housing for the folks who can compete and still stay in those areas. If the pricing is affordable. So there are ways to build and preserve affordable housing developments that are just below market rate or just at market rate in a way where everyday folks can embrace and engage in that healthy development that's happening in our neighborhoods. So that doesn't necessarily mean that preserving affordable housing or building new affordable housing units is going to bring down the property value. Property value is still going to increase. It just ensures that the communities that have fought for that development to happen in those neighborhoods, that they can enjoy the benefits too. So at the end of the day, I'm here for better neighborhoods. I'm just here for making sure that we can still have those inclusive neighbors and that everyone can have a place in those communities. And I think there's a way to do it to get both, to get those good, valuable properties, but to also have these very dignified, affordable housing developments. So when I say build affordable housing, I want dignified, affordable housing. Leslie was talking about the importance of having those things next to transit, of having those things next to grocery stores. And a lot of the times, the development of the affordable housing can actually bring in some of those other things when it's done in a healthy, community-centered way. And I actually think when you do that type of healthy development, then everyone's winning because the property value is just going to go up.
That's good. I like that approach. CK?
Yes, I think we have a fellow from the Atlanta metropolitan area, Latanga. I don't know if she's on the line, but if so, we'd love to hear from
Yeah.
her. And then we're going to get closing remarks from everyone because this has been an amazing show, but we've got to close out for your next show, Wandolyn. Is
Yes,
it?
yes.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Latanja Allen Felder. I am a National Urban Fellow graduate of the class of 91. So I wanted to say I'm very proud of Kansas for being the capstone winner because there's a lot of benefits to being a National Urban Fellow alum, such as getting the excellent training that she's gotten, that she was able to write the capstone, and now talking about it on the radio here in Atlanta. I'm here in Atlanta myself. I work for the City of Atlanta Department of Transportation, and I'm just like want to affirm the leadership that the National Urban Fellow provides for individuals that get into the program and have the leadership training and development pipeline, and to go on to do really wonderful things. So with all of that said, I'd like to ask Candace the question. What will be your transformational impact for yourself, the National Urban Fellows Program, and your capstone on whatever community you want to carry on your capstone?
Well, first of all, excellent question. And thank you so much for your comments. We have to close the show. So we're going to have Candace respond, and that's going to be closing remarks. And everybody's going to have like 10 seconds. Candace, starting with you, because Wandolyn's got to go on to the next show and they're pushing us off. But when I say pushing us off, gently, nudge, nudge. Candace?
And thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the call and the question and the congratulations. I appreciate it. I'll just end with the thought of we really have to pay attention what's coming into our communities and the policy processes behind it. So that level of focus, that level of attention, that's the legacy that I hope to bring as a leader. I hope to shed light on it. I hope to intervene in it, and I hope to change it. Because when you wait until after these things happen, it's going to be so much more difficult. So pay attention from the beginning. We need strong leaders to implement, inform, and fight for these issues.
Okay, we're going to leave the last 30 seconds to Madam President. President and CEO of NUF. We just have to do it. Lisa, what do you have to say?
Yes,
Dr. Rollins.
Thank you so much for having us on the show today. I think what we saw is really kind of the illustration of why we exist, that really investing in leaders, invest in communities, right? And it supports us all. It's not just about addressing a specific issue. It allows us to build those bridges, to understand differences, to work across them, and to really balance, the benefits and burdens of being in this society so that we can all thrive.
Wonderful. Well, you heard it from Leslie Fields. We act. You heard it from Miguel enough. You heard it from Lisa enough. And you heard it from our wonderful Candace Juandolyn. The future is bright.
Oh, yes, it is. And we've got to continue this conversation
We
because
do.
we're not done. There's so much more that we have to cover. And so we're going to work on a part two to this. All right? This is awesome. Thank you all to all of our guests. Thank you for sharing with us today. And Attorney CK, how can people connect with you and follow you?
www.ckhofflerfirm.com, or you all know my NIL practice, www.nillawgroup.org. And I didn't have a chance to give y'all an update on NIL this show, but we'll do it next week.
All right. And what's the website for NUF?
www.nuf.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's On Point with Juandolyn Stokes, Law and Legal, with Attorney CK Hoffler. We'll go to break and we'll be back with more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has been great. We have got to do this again.
Absolutely.
I think there's so much more.
It's a first installment.
First installment. I love it, Miguel.
Thank you so much.
All right. You all have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Hi, this is Judge Hatchett, and you are ordered to tune in to On Point with Juandolyn Stokes.
News and Talk 1380 WAOK. Breaking news, sports, weather, coming from the WAOK News Center.
Tuesday, September 16th. I'm Maria Boynton. Here's what's happening.
We're not going to allow this kind of savagery to destroy our society anymore. We're stopping it.
President Trump is sending in the National Guard into Memphis, he says, to help combat crime on Monday. From the Oval Office, Trump said it would be exactly like the recent operation in Washington, D.C.
A person is 4 times more likely to be murdered in Memphis, Tennessee today than in Mexico City. It's been, and you know, Mexico City is not a cakewalk.
Trump saying the Guard will be joined by agents from the FBI and other federal officers. Tennessee Republican Governor Bill Lee was in attendance at the White House to back the plan, but Memphis Mayor Paul Young says he did not ask for troops to patrol the city, and he does not think their deployment will reduce crime. Trump again said he's thinking about establishing a similar operation in Chicago.